In recent decades, the risk of large-scale conflict in Europe has diminished. Ethnic tensions, however, remain a major source of violence. To address the emerging security issues after the fall of the Berlin Wall and the subsequent independence of many states, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe created the post of High Commissioner on National Minorities.
We know that inter-ethnic tension can lead to violence, that can lead to war, actually. That was the whole raison d'etre for the establishment of my institution in 1992. We had wars in the Balkans, new types of wars, not starting with the governments declaring war, but with inter-ethnic tension in one country, and then moving into a region, and then moving wider.
On the 5th of July 2007, the OSCE appointed Ambassador Knut Vollebæk, a former foreign minister of Norway, as the High Commissioner on National Minorities. Part of his work is to visit OSCE participating states at risk of ethnic conflict. The first High Commissioner, Max van der Stoel, started working with Georgia in 1997. The second, Rolf Ekius, developed this relationship further. The current High Commissioner has visited Georgia 11 times. Following the recent elections, he returns.
This trip has different aspects. One is, of course, to meet with the new government, both to tell them about myself and my institution and the work we have been doing, to make them aware of that we have been involved in this country for a number of years, explain why, so that we also can have an acceptance from them and kind of an ownership to this from the authorities' side, and hopefully a close cooperation, because there are a number of issues that we need to follow up.
Using quiet diplomacy, which involves supporting governments behind the scenes, the High Commissioner's mission is to identify and seek early resolution of ethnic tensions that might otherwise endanger peace and stability in OSCE participating states.
I have a mandate for so-called preventive diplomacy because it says quite clearly that I shall try to prevent conflicts.
Conflicts happen between communities, not necessarily between nations. And if you can make those groups be part of a bigger, then the likelihood of conflict is lessened.
Because of this new type of war that comes out of ethnic conflict, this institution was established in order to detect this, so to say, at an early stage.
The High Commissioner works to decrease the risk of conflict by identifying and addressing the root causes of ethnic tensions, such as a lack of knowledge of each other's language and culture. To help bridge inter-ethnic misunderstandings in countries like Georgia, education is one of the focus areas of the High Commissioner.
I think education is fundamental for any society in any country. It's really state building. If you don't have an education system that functions, you will have problems sooner or later. And this goes for the basic education that we all need. But in countries which are divided through ethnic groups, I think it's also so important to find some kind of a common denominator.
Working as a third party, facilitating negotiations between the authorities and national minorities, and sometimes with neighbouring states as well, he has to be impartial, work in confidentiality, and promote cooperation.
In my case, then, they wanted this institution to be more of a kind of an assistance to the governments, I would say, that we should actually address issues and work with the governments. We try then to explain that it is in their self-interest to work with all sections and segments of their society in order to have a cohesive and stable society.
Situated in the heart of the European continent with a population of 4.4 million, Georgia is the home of many national minorities, the two largest groups being the Armenians and the Azerbaijani. Although they represent just 12% of the total population, they are densely settled in regions like Samtskhe-Javakheti and Kwemo-Kartli. Because they border Armenia and Azerbaijan, the local populations can feel closer to people in neighbouring countries with whom they share a common language and culture.
I think Georgia is a fascinating country, but it is a country with many challenges at the same time. Challenges because of the political situation, and also challenges because of the ethnic composition.
One of the issues in Georgia has been that development has taken place in many places, and some of these areas have missed out because development has passed them by. These areas where national minorities are present, they find it very difficult to get into legislation, to get into executive, to get into political parties, for example, because language barriers and other constraints.
The biggest problem in recent years was a complete alienation. Just talking about physical things, there was no road. People who lived there, they could hardly feel what was the country they were living in because of the lack of transportation, lack of any connection, virtually any connection with the rest of the country.
Азербайджанцы, граждане Грузии, которые проживаем здесь.
Ничего не знаем, только русское немножко.
В наше время, я сам кончил азербайджанскую школу, в наше время не так учили грузинский язык. Не было интереса. В школах, например, я расскажу, здесь были военные тоже. Вот их дети ходили вместе с моим сыном в школу. А их грузинский язык не интересовал этих военных.
The Russian language had an important role during the Soviet Union. In Georgia, for example, it was the language of communication between different nations, and the Georgian language was not taught in non-Georgian regions of Georgia. So after the collapse of Soviet Union and after Georgia gained independence, a new reality came.
After the Rose Revolution in 2003, the new government started to reform the education system. A new emphasis on teaching Georgian has had implications for national minorities.
Properly and wisely implemented bilingual education will enable them to be integrated in Georgian society and to get quality of education in their native language as well.
We are a multilingual and multi-ethnic nation, and we are very keen about maintaining and giving possibilities to everyone. And the highway is the education through which you get a national-wide process.
There has been a growing understanding in the government circles that the work that we are doing then with respect to integration and with respect to inclusiveness in society, how to address this through education, through language, through political participation. There is a growing understanding that this is the right path.
One of the High Commissioner's main objectives on trips such as this is to see how multilingual education reform is working in schools like this one in Akhaltsike in the Samtskhe-Javakheti region.
Since we are in the field of education, it's important to meet with teachers, headmasters, school directors, and I'm very impressed with them. I must say that it's wonderful to see the dedication among a lot of these people. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. Do you use both languages at the same time?
საერთოდ ადრე იყო რომ მთლიანად ერთი გაკვეთილი ქართულად იყო ხოლმე და ერთი გაკვეთილი რუსულ ენაზე ვატარებდი და ახლა 3 საათია უკვე წელს. ხო და ვინაიდან ჩავთვალეთ რომ წიგნებიც ისია რომ რუსულად და ქართულად არის, ანუ გაკვეთილზე ორივე ენაზე საუბრობ.
May I have a look at the book?
შეიძლება წიგნიც რო შევხედე. წიგნია
Yeah, so there's both Russian and Georgian. What do you speak at home then, Monica?
Some of the parents think that the future of their kids lies on relations with their mother home country in Armenia or Azerbaijan. So they think that it's better to have one language instruction and to have the quality education in one language instruction.
The situation in schools where multilingual education has not yet arrived is completely different.
What would you like to do then afterwards?
She wants to be a doctor.
Where would you like to study to become a doctor? What are you going to do after you finish your school?
He wants to study in Yerevan.
In Yerevan. It's hard, both for teachers and for students. The challenges with respect, for instance, to state language learning, multilingual education, which is a part of the work that we are undertaking in order to address both the mother tongue of the people so that they can uphold and keep that, and at the same time learn the state language.
After meeting ethnic Armenian pupils who hope to continue their studies in the Armenian capital, Yerevan, the High Commissioner meets their parents and teachers.
And in order to be a doctor or an a teacher or an engineer or participate in elections, you also need to know Georgian language.
Мы не против, чтобы учить грузинский. Я тоже хочу, и все другие. Но мы хотим свой армянский сохранить.
They want to keep the Armenian language as possible.
Yes.
Вот это вот наше, то, что нам проблема, которую мы хотим.
Բայց մենք ազգությամբ հայ ենք եւ մի քանի ամսում այդ կուրսերում հնարավոր չէ մասնագիտորեն վերացերեն սովորին, որ նույն տասը եւ հայերեն պարապեն, կեսներ վերացերեն։ Լեզու սովորելու համար 5-6 տարի պետք է ամենակիչը։ Իսկ ինչպես կարելի է հետո էլ աշակերտներ ի վիճակի չէ։ Մի տասի ընթացքում հնարավոր չէ երկու լեզու։
There are teachers that feel that they are not qualified. And that's why I think it is important for the government to, yes, have a clear policy, a clear dedication, but to do this in cooperation with the teachers and the parents and the students, because otherwise you can have very negative reactions to this work. But it's also then important that I manage to leave them with the impression that we are here to help, and that this is something that is not going to undermine their positions as teachers, nor their society, nor their ethnicity or culture, but that we can add something to their situation.
The High Commissioner has been promoting and supporting multilingual education in Georgia for over 10 years. In 2008, the government committed to introduce multilingual education reform.
The teachers, most of them cannot speak state language. It means that they are not able to teach bilingual, so they are afraid to lose their jobs. That's why they are against the bilingual education reform. When we are explaining to the teachers that they are able to learn the state language and to teach bilingually, they understand that bilingual education reform is important for the kids, for Armenian and Azerbaijani students, for the Georgian society. They are very positive.
Today in Georgia, also those people who have come into government now, they have also been around for a long time, and they have seen the need for more integrated and active minority policy.
And from the issues that we've discussed, there are quite a bit of very important and strategic and creative decisions that have to be taken, and they have to be implemented, and all of those decisions very careful. So I'm very interested in continuing this partnership and this kind of relations.
I think there's a very positive atmosphere here at the moment, and we try and support that and develop it and continue it.
The High Commissioner also set up language houses where ethnic minorities of any age or profession can learn the state language. The language houses also provide courses for teachers who speak Russian, Armenian or Azerbaijani, so that they can also teach their subjects in Georgian. The High Commissioner carries out projects to provide concrete examples of his policies in action. The aim is to hand over operations to local partners. As such, the language houses have been a success. The Georgian government now runs 8 language houses in Samskhe Javakheti, Kwemokatali and Kakheti.
I think we have seen over the years a greater and greater understanding of the usefulness of the work that we are doing. I think some of the examples would be the language houses, which at the beginning was maybe something the government was a little bit doubtful about. But we started and we worked and we funded it in the beginning, and now it is taken over by the government. They are in the government budget. It's very rewarding to see that there are positive results, and when you meet people then that have been part of our programs and have been taking part in the different projects, and they come back with very strong statements.
ჩვენი იმ სკოლებიდან მოსწავლეების რაოდენობა, რომლებიც შემდეგ უმაღლეს სასწავლებლებში აგრძელებენ სწავლას. თითქმის ყველა არის ის მასწავლებელი, რომელთაც შეუძლიათ ამით აი საკმაოდ ესეთი შთამბეჭდავი შედეგები.
I think I have seen a development where also the non-Georgian ethnic groups actually feel closer and closer to Georgia as a country, that they realize that this is our home, regardless of the ethnicity.
The High Commissioner's support also extends to pupils beyond the classroom. The Youth Argonauti project helps ethnic minority youths participate in Georgia's society and challenges stereotypes. Students go to study in another region of Georgia, living with Georgian host families.
მე სომეხი ვარ და სახში სომხურად ვლაპარაკობ. მე ქართული ვისწავლე პატარობიდან. პატარა რო ვიყავი, მხოლოდ მქონდა ისა სახში იმედის არხი მქონდა ქართული. და ფილმებს ვუყურებდი, რა ვიცი, ქრონიკას ვუყურებდი. ისე ვისწავლე და მე მივდიოდი სკოლაში, მასწავლებელს ვეკითხებოდი ისა და ეს სიტყვა რას ნიშნავს, მეორე რას ნიშნავს და ისე ვისწავლე.
ასული იყო ქუთაისში ქართული სწავლას და არ იცოდა ლაპარაკი, მაგრამ არასწორად იცოდა გრამატიკულად. და ახლა ძალიან კარგად ლაპარაკობს ქართული ენა, არ აუშავს, თავს მუშაობს. დირექტორია კიდე და ძალიან უხარია.
ჩვენი სოფლებიდან სოფელში არ არის ქართულის მასწავლებელი და სხვა სოფლები დამოდიან ჩვენთან რომ ქართულს ისწავლიან. ჩვენ მეგი მინდა რომ
პროექტი ჩემთვის შანსი იყო და რომ მე იქ ვიყავი, ძალიან დამეკობდი ქართველებს, მათი დახმარებით შევისწავლე ქართული ენა და ეხლასაც მაგ ამასთან ერთად ურთიერთობა და ოჯახებით დავახლოვდით.
I think the youth have to be developed in such a way they become the representatives of society, and then they become the next generation that becomes more mainstreamed into Georgia proper. And I think that's probably one of the best ways forward.
Of the 74 participants between 2008 and 2011, 20 went on to pass the national exams to enter Georgian Higher Education Institute.
By default, the ethnic Armenian population, as well as Azeri, but for this purpose Armenian, was excluded from the process of the higher education. Because of lack of knowledge of Georgian, they were losing in competition.
Ზე იყო ქართული ენის სწავლა. ანუ კვირაში 2-3 საათი ჰქონდათ ქართული ისა გაკვეთილების საათები და ეხლა უკვე ყოველ დღე, თითქმის ყოველ დღე თან დღეში 2 საათი აქვთ ქართული ენის გაკვეთილი.
We have a system that minorities from those areas compete with each other and in their in this case in Armenian language, and then they have and are enrolled in universities based on the scores without the Georgian language test, and then they are given extensive Georgian learning, and it has given us initial good results about huge hike in number of residents from there getting to Georgian universities.
It's very important for us that we have learned in Georgian. I'm in Georgia, I'm in Tbilisi, and it for me very important. ეს პროექტი ძალიან მნიშვნელოვანი იყო, იმიტომ რომ ჩვენ გვქონდა კონტაქტი ქართველებთან და მე თავად ისე ვისწავლე ქართული.
ჩემი აზრით მართალია საქართველოს სახელმწიფო ენა არის ქართული, მაგრამ ქართული ენა არ უნდა ვისწავლოთ მშობლიური ენის ხარჯზე. აქ რომ სწავლობ ქართულ ენაზე, ეგ სულაც არ ნიშნავს, რომ ჩვენ უნდა დაგვავიწყდეს, რომ ჩვენ სომხები ვართ.
Georgia is to be linguistically integrated into all the global processes that are happening in Georgia. You have to know your ethnic language, which is part of your culture. You have to know Georgian to be integrated into Georgian nationwide processes, and you have to know English at the same time to be integrated into global processes.
What we try is, of course, to make this a government's policy. We would like to have them involved from the very beginning. That's why we, for instance, we offer experts to the Ministry of Education. We don't do it for them, but we offer them some assistance, but embedded in the ministry.
His partners in Georgia include international organisations such as the UN and the European Centre for Minority Issues, as well as local NGOs, such as the Centre for Civic Integration and Inter-Ethnic Relations.
The government is fundamental when it comes both to legislation and when it comes to implementation of the laws. I mean, we need both a top-down and bottom-up approach. Because government has to show the will, be willing and move forward, because they have the tools to do this. But at the same time, then you need also a receptive audience, so to say, a reception on the ground. And I think we can help the government in preparing that through experts, through NGOs, through civil society, through different groups and people, that there is an understanding of what this is all about.
Our achievement is that, for example, in 2005 we developed a national curriculum for Georgian as a second language. We started piloting the project of bilingual education, and together in close collaboration with the OSCE High Commissioner on National Minorities, we achieved that ministry decided to have an affirmative action policy for higher education admission system in Georgia. So all these activities facilitated the process of civil integration of ethnic minorities in Georgia.
As Georgia enters a new phase of its political life under new leadership, what is the future for multilingual education?
I have to implement some kind of mechanism to prove to those who are concerned that Georgian is the national language, which is not pushing them towards different identity, which is simply opening broader possibilities. And if I am successful in proving that this is not, that learning Georgian is not a betrayal of their identity, but it's just an opportunity of future, it's just opening their future possibilities, I think my job will be effective.
First of all, the policy should be sustainable. We should have a long-term strategy how to implement bilingual education reform, and to know what we are achieving after the 10 years and what to do to achieve these goals.
Well, I think maybe more incentives given to teachers to go there, for example. I think more, more support given in terms of technology. I think the idea of bringing internet there and making it maybe sort of beyond Georgia, making people see the outside world in a different way. I think those are very obvious things that you can do. It takes a long time for those to have a result, though. But I think what you have to do is maybe create some champions within the youth and give them the opportunity to lead the new generation and bring them forward.
No, I hope that this work will continue, that there is understanding of the importance from the government side that Georgia is a country, a multi-ethnic country, and all citizens, regardless of ethnicity, belong to this country. They have certain fundamental rights which should be upheld, and they should be given opportunities to fully participate. That is the basis for this. And if these two movements move forward together, the government's responsibility and understanding and the minorities or the different ethnic groups' desire and will and opportunities, then I think that this country has a bright future.